Start.
Okay, so shall we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So good evening, friends. Apologies for the delay. We normally start right on time. Today it's just a few minutes late because I had some system issues. We'll go straight on to the session. Thank you very much, Vijay sir, for accepting our invitation to come and share your knowledge with us on the information technology in bank audits. So before I give a formal introduction, I would just like to, quote a few things from the a guidance note which is issued by the institute and about the importance of information technology in utilization in bank audits, the frauds, the cyber frauds, and the willful defaulters circulars which have been issued by the RBI. So if you see the guidance note, where we talk about the responsibility of the auditors, the institute touches upon the true and fair view of the financial statements, both of the branch statutory auditors as well as of the central statutory auditors. And we are actually supposed to follow the standards on auditing issued by the ICAI, and a lot of emphasis is given on SA 240. Whereas auditors, we have the responsibility to plan and perform the audit to obtain a reasonable assurance. And we all know that a reasonable assurance is a very high level of assurance to, as to whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether caused by fraud or by error. So what we have to do is we have to identify the risks of material misstatement in the financial statements due to the fraud, obtain the sufficient appropriate audit evidence, which is again a very high level of evidence about the assessed risks of material misstatement due to fraud through designing and implementing appropriate responses, and we have to respond appropriately to the identified or the suspected fraud. So what we have to essentially do is, apart from all the experience that we have as auditors and the amount of material which is available on information technology in bank audits and our own other audits, physical audits which we do, we have to place a lot of importance on the master circular and the master directions issued by RBI, both on the frauds as well as on willful defaulters, where RBI is talking a lot about the early warning signals, because as auditors we are supposed to actually design our audit procedures so that whatever we sign off, as we saw, is free from error or fraud, and we have to report. Even though it is not our objective as statutory auditors to find out the fraud or the fraudulent activity or its possibility, we just have to assess the existence and effectiveness of the fraud risk mitigating and avoidance framework within the implemented by the auditee branches. So it goes without saying, we have to actually give a lot of importance to these circulars which are issued by RBI on the early warning signals and as well as the on the willful defaulters. I will not take up too much of time now. I'm sure the speaker is going to cover a lot on all these circulars which have been issued by RBI. But what I would like to do before I hand it over to the speaker is give you a brief introduction of Mr. Kottapalli Vijay Srinivas. He's very familiar to all of us, and he has been gracious enough to accept our invitation today to address all our professional colleagues. He's based out of Hyderabad and has been practicing for more than 18 years. Apart from a CA, he's an MCOM, and he's a IP, he's a CISA, and he's a CFE. And he's got various certifications from ICAI on anti-money laundering, in DISA, then the FAFD, the concurrent audit, and the Ind AS and indirect taxation, apart from certification in cyber security. He specializes on systems audits, forensics and fraud investigations, fraud and risk management services, and data analytics. And he has been co-opted in various committees, within ICAI and within the branches at Hyderabad. and his accomplishments are so huge, and we should actually be really very grateful that you are sharing all your knowledge, sir. He has done the IS audit and review of IT framework of various banks and NBFCs. He's done forensic audit of various listed and unlisted companies, fraud and risk management consultancy to Citibank, HDFC Bank, Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Cholamandalam DBS Finance Limited, ASM audits of SBI, management audit of Union Bank of India, due diligence of various listed and unlisted companies as part of acquisitions and mergers. And I found this very interesting. Microfinance due diligence audits as per RBI guidelines for more than 500 branches across India, covering portfolios of HDFC Bank, Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, PNB, and Kotak Mahindra Bank. And he has done this regular audits, which we all do, like the statutory, concurrent, and revenue audits. The others, sir, a few of us may or may not have done it. I haven't done it. Business valuations, then guest lectures and workshops on banking frauds, Excel as an audit tool, data analytics for bank inspections, GST department, income tax department, and for students and members of ICAI. And he's also a regular faculty of AICI TSS of ICAI on advanced Excel, and he's also an empaneled peer reviewer. Apart from the knowledge sharing which he does on YouTube channels as few minutes of audit and 2 minutes of Excel. So thank you so much, sir. Your profile is so awesome, and we are all extremely grateful that you've taken the time off to share your knowledge with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you, SIRC and Gilly sir, team Monica and all for inviting me to take this session, and thanks for such a detailed introduction, ma'am. I'm privileged. Yeah, I was worried about when this particular topic has been discussed to present for the reason that it is more of theoretical. Second, unfortunately, due to some technical glitches, Premna sir was unable to join as it was planned for to be present by both of us. So I'll try to see how much I can accommodate during these 2 hours. And meanwhile, I'll like to make this request to those members who have joined through mobile, because for this app, what SIRC is using, it will enable those who are have joined through mobile to unmute themselves and talk. So probably anyone want to probably share their knowledge or raise certain questions, something like that, you are very much welcome, because this, as I said, more of a dry subject.
Sir, as this webinar platform, members will be like only able to put their questions in the chat, sir. They will not be able to unmute themselves and talk here.
Those who joined in mobile app, they can unmute and speak. Sorry.
Yeah. Only thing is that it's not more about questions. Probably I'll try to, as I was mentioning, try to keep myself engaged as well, because this is so dry in terms of sharing without any practical workshop kind of thing, because we are speaking about the circulars of RBI in terms of IT and cyber security, so which goes on and on in terms of theory, but someone puts hands on or into that mood.
I don't think that it will be as dry as you say, sir. It should be extremely interesting, because all of us are going straight into the bank audit immediately after your thing, maybe in a couple of days. So I'm sure that it's going to be very, very interesting, and you're going to share your knowledge as to how to proceed with this. I understand you're telling that we may not be having a hands-on, but I'm sure that it will be extremely interesting.
I'll try to make it most of it.
Yeah.
So let me just get into the presentation mode. Is the screen visible? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So this is about IT and cyber security circulars, and as I proceed, the reason behind presenting this at this point of time, though many of us agree that we have very little to play when it comes to branch audit, to probably incorporate, or for that matter try directly get into the controls of IT and cyber security, being a branch auditor. Saying so, this being a season of bank audit, like the way we had a season of GST, we had a season of income tax, we have a season of Company Act and all, so it goes on throughout the year, and that's where we have a bunch of presentations coming through various eminent speakers and also. What we thought is we'll also introduce this as part of this particular season, so that even if it is not so probably handy in terms of bank audit, but taking this forward will be very much important. May not be at this point of time while you complete the LFARs or while you complete any report, but definitely it is a value addition, and it is going to be the way it is going to mold your bank audits down the line. So for that matter, what me, Premnath and Naresh Gillis sir have thought that we'll try to take this paper at this point of time and try to discuss it. And just a disclaimer, because when we speak about whatever presentations I'm making, nothing is being endorsed by ICAI nor by SIRC. It's only my personal views, and being a professional, obviously there is always a chance of debate and always chance of counter opinion, definitely. And when we speak about audit, especially when we speak audit in terms of IT, IS, or for that matter any kind of framework review, it doesn't exactly mean to be audit. It could be examiner, it could be reviewer also. So the words might be interchanging, but ultimately the expression is in terms of reviewing those controls. That's what it is meant for, and that's a disclaimer. Now we'll take up a couple of updates, the recent updates, and these updates are 3 to 4 updates which just happened during a period of last 9 months or so. I mean, that shows the impact, that shows the way RBI is coming out stringently when it comes to adoption of those IT frameworks, adoption of those cybersecurity frameworks, and implementing those directives and master circulars. So that makes important for us as an auditor, and we'll also see what branch auditor can do at this from his point of view, and apart from the central auditors as well. Now, this is one penalty which was levied on HDFC, 10 crores. You might say the sections are different, which directly hit upon the, which may not directly hit upon the IT or IT or cybersecurity controls, but definitely these have creeped in because of the lapses, whatever they had in terms of documentation. Usually, when we speak about auto loans, home loans, you have many mediators, many medium entities, vendors, which are involved, who are involved in the process, where they exchange the customer data. Bank will have an MOU with the vendors, could be risk management vendors, could be fraud risk vendors, could be credit appraisal vendors, anyone. So obviously, when we have an agreement, we have certain policies levied by, defined by RBI in terms of outsourcing, in the way you exchange the data, in the way you control. You have the right to audit of those vendors. And that is one way these particular clauses have been breached when it comes to this particular bank. And because of that, due to that reasons, they couldn't have a proper control on that, and that has led to this levy of 10 crore penalty. And that shows importance. At this point of time, definitely I'll add one point. Now, once you go into a bank branch, and you might come across a particular document, any file, any advances, especially when you speak about ODs, CCOD facilities. You might have come across bankers would have asked for the 3-year financials, ITRs and all, and they'll engage outsourcing a person, third party person, who will do verification of those financials either with the MCA or either with the income tax portal or either any of those departments, and confirm back whether they are genuine or what is the content of that. Now, when we have those, obviously, it also makes important for us to review, does the bench has empaneled those to whom they are giving these particular verification jobs, or is there any properly documented MOU, or something like that. Obviously, when we speak about goldsmith, when it comes to gold loans, we check that whether the goldsmith is empaneled with the bank. The same way, when it comes to these credit appraisal vendors or the risk management vendors, obviously it makes so important to have those MOUs. And we have come across instances where, unlike in the private banks, where they go with a proper documentation before they take any vendor onto the rolls, it is lacking because you have branches across MFCs or villages or some other places where they take services of the third parties in validating the profile of the customer or verifying the profile of the customer. We call it CPV, that is contact point verification, whether it is residence or business, or even for that matter any financials. Now, does the banker has a proper document in ensuring that he is authorized to have access to the customer data? This is one important area what you can focus on, and because these kind of things might have started at some lowest level, and probably it has gone up to the highest level where it has hit up to the penalty of 10 crores kind of thing. So obviously it starts definitely with some or other branch, may not happen at the central level. So that point probably we can make a note on that. And second, this is one more this thing, and this is not the one which we come across recently, Paytm. That is also covered anyway, where they have restricted Paytm to not take onboard any new customers. But this one was levied in October 2021 with regard to the two cross-border service operators, and there's a penalty of around 27 lakh and odd. And this again, speaking about this, a certificate of authorization does not reflect the factual position. So again, it goes with the way they have tie up with those people, and also the way proper normal due diligence what bank officials would have done based on the report submitted by those third-party vendors. And this is again classic case which is directly due to non-compliance of cyber security framework. If you see the background, and these are all copied from the press release note issued by the RBI, not from any of the media houses. So as you can see, the background says the inspection report of bank based on its financial position as on so and so revealed internally a violation of non-compliance. More than anything, basic cyber security framework and on IS audit and internal audit compliance. Okay, and the levy was around 12 lakh rupees. I would have come across certain banks where they were levied up to 1 crore also in, of course, different process, but definitely it started off with the control lapses. That's that part we can see. And the latest one, which again deals with something like IT audit, because it says directed to appoint an IT audit firm to conduct a comprehensive system audit of IT system, which indirectly says that definitely there are certain lapses in the system control or in IS or in the IT, which has made RBI take this decision of restricting any taking any new onboard customers. Okay, now these are all developments as you go with the dates, the way it has published. This was in January 22. This was in this was also in January 22, and again October, May, almost like within a short gap of 8 to 9 months what we are seeing. And as we go further, considering the tokenization of card COC, what they've released recently, of course they've extended up to June 2022. And you speak about digital security regulatory framework, what they have released last year. And as and when these new directions come into place, and definitely banks have to adopt those within given times. And obviously, apart from the internal system audit, what they perform or at the central level, it also plays important as part of our branch auditors, seeing that at least, if not thoroughly, wherever I can possible during my regular audit procedure, if I come across something like that, okay, I might have to report that to my central auditors to whom I'm making my report. Okay. Now, going further, as we are more interested at this point of time, saying that what is the importance of these so-called IT or IS or cyber security frameworks or the audits or the reviews or the directives or the circulars in terms of our audit, the statute audit, what we are going to conduct. And I've just taken certain extracts from the LFAR scope of the central statutory auditor, where it says that the overall objective of the LFAR is to identify and assess the gaps and vulnerable areas in the business operations and risk management. Now, these two terms are so crucial. When I say business operations, when I say risk management, it doesn't only speak about so-called IRAC norms or so-called documentation or so-called provisions, what they capture in LFAR, anything which is directly or indirectly relevant or related to the respective operations, and anything which might impact the risk, which might have an impact on the risk management, obviously has to be considered as part of my report, and more so as a central auditor. Now, again, certain clauses they've clearly mentioned, saying that the issues with regard to the KYC, AML, and CFT, which is some or other way related to the digitized kind of data, where they have to validate, banks have to validate by using, like say if I speak about KYC, they might have to authenticate the Aadhaar when they link up to the bank account, or they might have to validate the PAN number, they might have to validate some kind of address details and all. all those coming in a digitized form, obviously that forms part of my review as a central statutory audit. And also cybersecurity has been clearly mentioned as part of the scope of LFR. And as usual, they have also mentioned auditor may factor in all material issues which are considered critical, including the control culture of the bank, which is very crucial, which of course we speak in terms of so-called Ghosh-Jilani reports and also so-called LFR, and also structure and complexity of the IT system. These are to be considered. Okay. Now this is with regard to the central statutory auditor scope, and they have also mentioned various systems what they have to review, as they have classified into various categories like advances, cash management, and all. Information systems is also one such part which they have to consider. Now, auditors should comment on the robustness of the IT systems, covering all the software used by the bank, along with the functions thereof, interlinking, interface between different IT system, ATM network, so and so, adequacy of IS audit, migration of audit. Now, this particular class, it attracts so many things, a gamut of business operations or the banking operations what we deal with. Because when we say interlinking or interface of applications or softwares, we have direct applications like CBS, we have middleware, which is used by central auditors to pull up the MIS or probably prepare the dashboard kind of thing. Or we might have some controls like could be firewalls or whatever. When we speak about these things, definitely it starts with the policy, the way bank has adopted, and the way those policies have been reviewed by the central statutory auditor. But at the same time, it also becomes the responsibility of the branch, because if I'm doing an audit of a remote place, say somewhere nearer to Warangal or Karimnagar or somewhere remote place, and I obviously those are connected through some network, and they have facilities like ATM, they have facilities like any kind of network-based facility, and obviously it also forms part of my scope, not just to comment yes, no, or not applicable in terms of Ghosh-Jilani or otherwise in the LFR, to at least have a glance. Say, for example, if you are just walking through the bank, probably going in around bank for in the washroom or whatever you pass on, you might come across some unused or idle systems lying out somewhere in the bank premises. You might come across some systems lying across, or you might see some routers lying across. Now, does those things have been accounted as the IT assets by the branch, or what kind of controls they have? Okay, and more or less, when we speak about bank audit, we always look at it in a special way. In my personal view, if I can look at as like any other PSU audit or any large manufacturing entity audit, the way I follow the procedure in terms of asking about the asset register, asking about the payroll register, asking about all those things, if I can adopt those, okay, as even part of your casual discussion also. So somewhere you might come across those control lapses, which looks minute considering the scope, but which might be very effective for the SCAs, the central auditors, in making some comment or making some decision and all. And it becomes so apt at this point of time. You've been requesting me and Premna sir through various sessions, considering the recent developments what we have in terms of other regulators coming in, other boards coming in educating accounting bodies and all. And now it plays so important. It is also so important for us to comment on this, so that they know that they get to know that we are doing some value addition, not just a regular checklist based audit or some report based audit. We are also giving some value addition in terms of identifying those control lapses and pointing those, which will be very great help for the central statutory auditors to comment upon. And it also plays important in your regular ICOFR also, that is commenting on control aspects of the financial report. Okay, now this is about the system, information system. Again, they have covered about IT security, IS policies, and whether the bank has duly updated and approved IT security and IS policy. Now here, most of the time when we go for any branch audit or otherwise any kind of normal, we usually put this question asking, of course we make a request officially also, saying that can you please share the latest IS audit report and IS policy copy, including a branch IS audit report, and if possible I'll also request for main IS audit report, not the entire annexure, at least those 3 or 4 page where the auditor made a comment. Definitely they will not provide, definitely they will not share. Why leave about the regular audit? We have done the management audit of a couple of banks. At that stage, being, as you all know, the scope of management audit is to comment on the policies and the procedures set up with the bank. There itself, they never shared any IT policy, IS policy to us. Okay, they'll be reluctant, they'll not be sharing definitely, but it becomes our job to at least make a request saying that at least we have some evidence saying that we made a request. If in case something goes wrong, okay, at least we have a disclaimer, we made a request for that. Or if you are lucky enough, who knows, they might share the latest IS policy, IS audit report, what they've come across, or some enthusiastic branch official might come forward in sharing, which will be very good enough, not just for that case of regular audit, might be also for future uses across various audits of the bank. Okay, so try to make this habit of requesting the IS audit, latest IS audit report, if possible at the central level as well, though they share or not, at least try, give a try. And it speaks about the critical systems and processes. Premna sir has shared a couple of presentation to me requesting me to share. I'll try to share where it speaks about the penalties levied due to lapses in the critical systems and processes. Let me just try to present it. I believe you can see the screen where it speaks about the control lapses due to non-compliance of course, RBI circulars, may not be IT or cyber security. But yeah, SWIFT system, which is again part of your controls, what you have to review. Still, we are in process of adopting ISO 20022. I think by 2025 is what the deadline they have. But as of now, we still follow the SWIFT. So in that case, certain banks were levied with the fine due to improper controls. You have levies on ICAI Bank way back in 2018, Indian Bank, so and so. So all these speaks about the control lapses, which is again we have to give our opinion based on whether there is an effective system of interlinking, including seamless flow of data, so and so using the process. Because when we speak about interlinking, as we all know, there is hardly any integration of modules of the SWIFT with the CBS or CBS with the HR module or HR module with the what you call stock exchange or whatever. Okay, so there is no proper integration. It's like I either migrate the data or otherwise it goes with the regular data entry or import kind of mechanism. So these are the things which definitely has clearly says that there is no seamless flow of data. There is a manual intervention. And not only that, the particular whatever data updation may not happen on real-time basis also. Even if it is manual, again, it might take its own time. These are all the things which definitely will impact the information system. Now coming to the branch auditor, as I was mentioning, there is no clear scope or clear direction saying that you have to go through the IS audit and all. Yeah, definitely one question is there where is in case the branch has been subjected to IS audit, whether there are any adverse feature reported. Now, obviously, this clause attracts, I mean, a question saying that whether the branch has gone through IS audit. If yes, then definitely they have to share, because no, obviously I have to comment on any adverse features have been reported on that. Now, if they have shared it, I believe IS audit, when we speak about the PSUs, most of the IS audit are being done by either internal team or through a central team who are probably empaneled with certain kind of organizations. Very few cases we've come across where a DISA qualified or a CISA qualified CA has done the review. Okay, but either way, just go through the report and see what kind of comments he has made, especially in those areas of like access controls or physical and environmental controls, or for that matter, any application controls, if they have come across any kind of deviations kind of thing. Try to make review those, and if definitely if they have any point to be added, you can consider. And if it is so adverse, I suggest you make it as a main point as well, because as I was mentioning, unless we comment on the controls, no matter how much I consider the IRAC norms, no matter how much I consider about NPA or MOCs and all, these are all a temporary kind of phase, which may not impact the kind of frauds we have come across or kind of scams what we have come across. Okay. If Premna sir would have been there, he would have presented that 3.4 lakh file a crores of frauds across 50,000 cases happened during the last 10 years or so. All these obviously definitely it's lapse of controls more than anything, more than any collusion or any kind of thing. And there are a couple of clauses in your miscellaneous section of LFR where it speaks about asking your major adverse comments arising out of the latest report. That is again referring to the point which is mentioned above, that is clause B1, saying that IS, IT and computer systems audit. Now you might wonder, what is this IS and IT and computer and system audit? Are they different, or is it that they have used here as synonyms? Definitely they are different each. IS is more of information security, where it speaks about the data. Data management, if I have to speak in terms of the protection of data, confidential, the way data accuracy is maintained, the way confidentiality is maintained. When it comes to IT, it's more of, it includes IS information systems as well, but not limited to information system. It has more in terms of your infrastructure, your applications, your software, all those things, including your third-party vendors where you outsource certain activities. All these forms part of your IT, your cloud or whatever. And computer and system is again very specific to your system and hardware, what you have used, and the processes what you have adopted while importing and exporting the data from system to the interconnected systems kind of thing. Okay. So intentionally they have put this 4 different terms. It's not the one and same. It's all definitely 4 different terms. Okay. Now I'll take you through a couple of circulars shared by RBI, and of late RBI has been very aggressive or very proactive in releasing various circulars or directions in terms of information systems, IT and cyber security. Not just because there are certain frauds or scams happening across, or not just because they have observed the deviation. They are trying to get in line with the frameworks adopted globally, whether it is NIST framework or whether you call it as frameworks defined by COSO or organizations like ICAI, like COVID 2019. So trying to be in line with those, of late RBI has been regularly updating those frameworks and accordingly directing the banks to adopt those various frameworks. Okay. Now these are the few things what RBI has been concentrating more on: the risk management systems of the bank, and information systems audit, the technology frameworks, and obviously when we speak about bank, the NBFCs, housing finance companies, and your cooperative banks, all those again they've independently released the respective framework for those, depending on the size of those entities. And these are the few important policies which can be definitely referred to. See, when we speak about this particular subject, I mean IS or IT or cyber security, whatever, there is a reason for us to probably get acquainted with these kind of terms, because you speak about other audits like GST, or you speak about income tax, or you speak about MCA or SEBI or whatever. You would have seen even in SEBI also they have released those LODR, regulatory reporting, where you have to mention about the risk management committee and what kind of cyber security policy they have adopted. So it is going to be a common phenomenon across various regulators. By getting acquainted with these kind of terms, I'm not just helping only for the bank audit, because when we speak about these kind of circulars or framework at a structure like RBI, a banking kind of entity, I'm dealing with like almost all the major aspects of controls, major aspects of system policies, major aspects of data sharing. Is it not? If I can understand those at the highest level, it becomes my job becomes much easier when I have to give my opinion, whether it in case of any public sector company or any private company, any listed company, if I have to review those respective IT policies and IS policies. And it doesn't require much of technical jargons or technical knowledge. If you understand the process, of course, when we speak about hardware controls or the so-called IT controls and all, yeah, definitely you might require, and that's where probably your multidisciplinary forms of having some cybersecurity expert as part of your firm as a partner, whatever, might be helpful. But otherwise, it'll be helpful for me even otherwise to review any kind of entities, any kind of organization. So this is the largest kind of scope what we are covering, going to the frameworks and circulars of RBI. Okay. Now, this is an interesting study. You can go through working group of IS electronic banking and cyber frauds implementation. This was issued in 2011. Then again, they were revised and issued in 2016 or so. The cyber security framework. Just go through that paper. And these are all hardly, there may be some 30-35 pages kind of content. Even if you casually go through that, even if you can get acquainted with maybe 25-30% also, it will be sufficient at least to have a prima facie opinion on the controls whenever you walk into a bank or for that matter any organization. Okay. And sharing of information technology resources with banks, because obviously they might be taking services of various vendors. Could be for CIBIL or could be for some rating, credit rating or so and so, or could be for verifying or validating the KYCs or AML. All those things, obviously it will not be, bank will not have those kind of infrastructure to validate. So definitely they'll have a type with various vendors. So that again, this particular circular covers what kind of due diligence bank has to perform when they have those kind of tie-ups, and what regularly. And one important out of these things, there is one right to audit clause, which is very important. That's what I was mentioning about a couple of penalties what they have raised, where that particular right to audit clause is missing. And if I have to refer to in recent, for the last 1.5 years, wherever a couple of clients were requesting, I mean, a couple of entities were trying to divert into NBFC sector or trying to set up an NBFC. It was they were finding so tough to get a what you call certificate from the RBI, because not only the systems audit, the outsourcing activity, including cloud, may be AWS or may be controllers or whatever, they are very specific, saying that what kind of right you have to review the controls at the vendor place. That's what we call it, right to audit kind of thing. Of course, we might say that vendor has gone through SOC audit and all, SOC 1, SOC 2, so we might consider comfortable having those reports in hand, but still those classes plays important. So you can just go through this circular where it speaks about what kind of controls you need to have when it comes to vendor agreements. And digital payment security control, I've just covered a couple of points at the end, because not just for the regular payments, based out of that, again, you have the COC tokenization, the credit card tokenization, and also the way the controls have to be made. And they've beautifully drafted certain general controls, including your ATM, including your iBanking, mobile banking, or internet banking, all those things. I'll just try to cover that at the end of this presentation. And of course, again, this one more outsourcing activities, as I was mentioning, extension of the earlier one, what kind of code of conduct they have to follow. And as you all know, RBI has set up a separate entity called Reserve Bank Information Technology. This is the website of that particular entity, which helps or probably coordinates or sometimes probably helpful if RBI in implementing or suggesting the modifications in the respective framework, or trying to keep real time the security controls kind of thing. Okay, and this is altogether a separate entity. They have their own board of directors, and it is again having its own management. It's only that they have agreement with the RBI. Obviously, it is been set up by RBI, but they have their own this thing, and you can visit this website to have further information on that. They also frequently release white papers. They conduct webinars. They conduct training sessions. Mostly, they try to conduct these training sessions for the bank employees. But occasionally they conduct for the auditors as well. So if time permits, or if you get an opportunity, try to attend those, because they share a couple of experiences what they've come across while setting up these controls, which might be helpful for us when we review those controls. Okay. And apart from RBI, obviously you have many entities. As I said, RBI, whatever they share the guidelines or the directives and all, it's not that directly they have drafted it. They have taken it from those suggestions internationally made by NIST or COSO, or could be all those Center for Internet Security, all those things, and based on that they have adopted. So if you get a time, if you can directly go through those circulars based on which the respective RBI circulars have been drafted, you will get a complete idea about, because they speak about what is the thought process behind setting up this particular thing. So you can go behind the policy to understand why this policy is required, what made them design this policy, and all. So that will make you understand the respective framework much better. Okay, so these are of course, our ICAI has also been aggressive in terms of releasing the respective guidances. You have guidance note issued on the ICOFR, and also in the LFA, also in the guidance note issued by ICAI. They have covered a couple of pages, almost like 25 to 30 pages exclusively on information technology and IS audit as well. An interesting read. Try to go through that as well. Now let's try to get into technical aspects of this thing. Before we get into that, if anyone has something to say or anyone have any questions or anything, kindly please we can speak out if you able to. Otherwise, you can put it in the question. As I said, this is more of theoretical. It might be dry for you, dry for me as well. So try to get myself a little engaging. We can take this opportunity. Otherwise, we can have it at the end also, not a problem. Yeah, just a second, please. Now, as I was mentioning about earlier, in terms of IT assets, or because IS is just part of the IT assets, information system is just part of the IT assets. And when we speak about information technology, what does it mean? It not just speaks about any IT equipment for acquisition, storage, or any kind of data transmission or reception or whatever. It also includes the devices which are connected to it. We speak about printer, routers, any other network equipment, phone equipment. Okay, and I believe you would have come across a couple of instances in the recent past where ATMs were hacked through Raspberry Pi, and they have tried to withdraw the cash because now obviously when we have these network devices and someone is trying to access that, that means it's not about the controls at the equipment, it's the physical and the environmental control policy what makes important, whether they have a surveillance, whether they have a security. Yeah, in fact, the Ghosh report speaks about, Gilani report speaks about more those kind of controls, and so those also forms your important observation. Like if you are having like 3 or 4 ATMs lined up in one premises where there is no proper security, where there is no kind of partition system, it might sometimes be considered as a control lapse as well. So it's not just the regular IT assets which handles the data, it also those which exchange through printers, storage devices, or any kind of those equipment. And when we speak about IT equipment specifically, it's not the hardware, software services, and any telephone, telecommunication product, office products such as photocopiers, fax machine, and other technology equipment used in creation, conversion, or duplication of data or information. So including your Xerox machine, which is connected to your system in a bank. If I have a equipment which is connected to the system, which has the capability of taking a copy, Xerox copy, that also forms part of my IT asset. Okay, so that's a elaborate or detailed definition of the information IT assets. Now, with this short introduction of what exactly you are dealing with, let's try to get into little technicalities of IT in banking. Okay. Now, when we speak about IT in banking, apart from the kind of layers what we have, of course, I've covered those layers as well as part of application controls, but we have many what you call interdependencies, all those systems which are purely dependent on the IT. Like we speak about regular banking, again you have your digital banking, mobile banking, which is directly linked to your IT systems. And apart from that, the services like advances, treasury, support, operations, HR, all these also are part of your IT processes. Because if I speak about advances, you have a system of LOS, you have a system of logging in a file, you have a system of creating a CAF, or you have a system of creating ID when it comes to advances, or a unique ID for a KYC. So all these being digitized, and obviously based on that, a proper tracking or proper control mechanism can be developed further. So all the activities what we speak about, whether it is operations or support systems or regular banking like retail and all advances, all these have IT plays an important role in those processes. Okay, now in this, again, what kind of infrastructure and resources what they use apart from the operations? Again, you have physical and environmental security. Again, I was just speaking in terms of what controls IT has. Okay, So physical and environmental security and migration and change management. This is one important area, because of late, whenever bank adopts any middleware, like say for example, you walked into a bank of let's say any Central Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, and all, you know that Bank of Baroda, there is a migration happened, and you have PNB, which there is a migration happened from OBC, and all they've merged into PNB and all. Now, when we have those migration, you have to be very cautious about the way you have. In fact, I've personally myself got affected due to the migration of OBC, merging of OBC with PNB, where due to the system lapse, I was levied a penalty on cash OD. Cash OD, as you know, based on the security of fixed deposit. Based on fixed deposit, you would have taken a loan, which obviously is a cash OD, which they'll not be levying any penalty on that. They can levy interest, but they can't levy penalty on that, because that's based on a fixed deposit. During that migration, there was some technical issues in terms of the way they've been integrated or migrated from one OBC to PNB. And right from the day the system has been migrated to PNB, system started generating penalizing my account with 2% of penalty. Okay, and of course, it has run out to some 25,000 kind of thing based on the request. Grievance what I raised. Of course, I got back the money. But I'm saying, if it can happen to us, it might be happening in a general way also. I'm saying just one such glitch or one such migration issue, one of those migration. And when you are going to audit for this particular 21-22, as you know that various banks have merged and they are still in a process of migrating. And that place is very important for us to see what kind of impact prior to what is the impact of migration, whether the data accuracy. So I might probably request a data trial balance just before the date of migration and after the date of migration, and accordingly try to validate the data the way it has been migrated, and also probably have to cross check certain fields based on the master data report. So that is one important thing what we have to consider. And of course, access management, this is being a much disastrous area when it comes to access management. Because why I say this is transaction level, yeah, of course, you know that a person, an employee generates based on a transaction, they'll generate a unique ID. That unique ID will be showing in a ticket for the other checker, and he'll authorize that, and so and so, so and so. And we know that if a person, a couple of, especially in offices and villages where we have come across, a person has more than one or two user IDs password known to him, and he himself was operating both the credentials. And one funny aspect we have come across is in one UCO bank, somewhere in Andhra Pradesh, where a sub-staff was having much idea about the systems, and he was flowing through the, running through the systems, whatever report we asked for, he was generating. Okay, and later on, we never know that he was a sub-staff. It's only that at the third day of audit, we came to know that he was a sub-staff. As you know, a attender kind of thing. So these things, obviously, it's been a disaster when it comes to access management. So that is one, probably the way we ask is get through the payroll register of the bank, identifying how many number of employees are there, what is the vintage of them in the given bank, when was the IDs created for them, and whether the biometric is enabled, and probably get a log of those biometrics to see what is the in time and out time, any uneven or exceptional kind of entries have happened in those time. And all this, obviously, you have the right. We usually ask for this biometric report, which is quite easy for them to generate. It just shows a credential, that is user ID, and at what timestamp of the particular login, and what is the time the particular session was active, so and so, so and so. So based on the, probably you might have to analyze, if a person is logging at the same time from one system and other system simultaneously, that shows clearly saying that some other person apart from the user also have the information about the access. Obviously, a user can be logging in simultaneously in two different systems within just a short gap of 1 minute or so. Okay. So these are the things. Obviously, as I said, the disaster access management has been very pathetic when it comes to this thing. Now, disaster recovery and backup management is again at the central level, the policy what they follow. Now, these are a couple of applications of CBS, what PSU banks use. FlexiCube banks and Finacle. Finacle, of course, it's been much familiar for us. Many of the banks they have used it, and mostly we go with the reports, that is end user reports in terms of analyzing the customer data, analyzing the CCOD terminals and all. But you have special reports where it generates, as I was mentioning about the access management, when I was saying about timestamp about of accessing a system, or exceptional reports as well. I mean, I'm not sure other banks what kind of name they follow. If I speak about IDBI, they have a EWS report, early warning signals, a particular special report, where it is called as Sajat, SAJJAT. They have a special name called Sajat. IDBI has that. Likewise, other banks also might have this exceptional report, which last year, I mean 2 years back, it was mandated to have those kind of systems in place, EWS reporting. So those will be forming part of your exceptional report. As I said, this is more of transaction, but still, once you generate, you might also come across surprises in terms of the control lapses. Could be from suspense account, what you see in exceptional report, or could be from the regular, even your daily NPA report, what they have started in the last year. Now, why I was covering about IT in banking is, as I said, one, for the reason that this session is meant to discuss more of IT and cyber security controls. Second, taking this opportunity of bank audit season, if we can get acquainted with these kind of terminologies, definitely down the lane, kind of information what we are getting through is we might have more frequent reviews of IT-based review or cybersecurity review, just like your concurrent audit, or could be part of your concurrent audit scope as well. So it's going to open up those kind of areas. So it's always better we get acquainted with this system. So that's where I was trying to cover more of this IT audit and cybersecurity controls. Now, what are the expectations from IT in banking? What exactly is the requirement is obviously the financial controls, operational controls, and information security controls, because data is the crucial part of the entire banking. I mean, that's where the entire, if I say a particular account has number of 10000, that means a crore of amount in a given account, or just by reducing a couple of zeros, it just all the digitization. I mean, what I meant to say is just the numbers or those kind of information what they've captured as a digitized form. So that becomes so important, where even if a slightest mistake in terms of accuracy or not properly capturing, it might impact the entire financial this thing. That's where we have this ICAI report, which is specially have to be commented upon. If I can consider that, especially I probably take this opportunity to request personally all of you to please focus on this IFC and try to probably go through certain information reports. If the bank, probably central auditors might have that information. If you can try to get that from the central auditors on the ICAI of the last year, 2021, any review of ICAI based on the March 2021, if you can get that, it becomes so easy for you to see whether those grievances or the deviations have been addressed by the bank in the current year or not. Okay, and also you can also refer in your saying that this was the position in the last year, so you are just reporting it. These are the control lapses what were identified during the last year, and you are posing it through audit note, saying whether they have been rectified or whether they've been taken care. Okay, so please try to use that particular area of IFC wherein it reaches. I mean, that's where our voice as of now can probably share, express ourselves in terms of the kind of quality what we are trying to maintain in bank audit. Considering the recent developments, it becomes so apt for us to try to come out open in mentioning those in our IFC. Now, of course, that's the expectation from IT in banking. And scope, obviously, right, based on the expectations of the business, that's how the scope of these things also have been defined. And one important is the regulatory compliances. Like if I speak about regulatory compliances, in case of cyber security framework issued in 2016, they have mentioned some annexure 1, 2, 3, wherein they have to immediately report if any incidents they have noticed. And when I say incidents, probably one interesting question is once you go into the bank, any customer has raised any grievance in terms of any dispute, whether in credit card maintained by the account which is with the respective branch, or any grievances in terms of wrong entries happening in his account. Wrong entries have happened and the bank has reversed it, or any kind of attempt of hacking happened maybe in his account or whatever. When I say hacking, obviously it may not be taking control of that. Maybe some transactions have happened without his idea. I mean, some debits and credits have happened in account without his knowledge, which is not done by him. So these are the things which ought to be reported by the branch. It's not that there is a breach happened, there is a loss occurred due to that breach. If you review the cybersecurity framework, it clearly says even an attempt has to be reported immediately. There is no timeline saying that 7 days or 1. It has to be reported immediately. When I say immediately, obviously we have to consider at least 24 hours kind of timelines. And there is a huge penalties bank has leveled. And a couple of cases what we have seen is those where there, especially that one of the cooperatives, some bank I was mentioning about Nobharat. So where that was one of those control lapses based on which they were penalized because the reporting of cybersecurity incidents was not done within time. And it also becomes important for us to raise this question probably orally or through audit notes, saying that any such incidences have come across, any wrong entries have happened to customer account without his knowledge, or any grievances have been raised by the customer for the digital transactions, or any grievances pending kind of thing. And these are all the things which will hit directly or regulatory compliances, because RBI wants to have that information communicated to them immediately. And IT general controls, that is the core area, that is a mother of all these so-called IT controls what we speak about. I've also tried to cover a couple of those points, of course not in detail, but at least to have an idea about what exactly ITGC is about. And you have all these things being covered: applications, operating systems, and database. And of course ITGC, if you can understand the layers of banking, that becomes even more easy for us to define those or probably review those ITGC controls as well. And one of the scope is again core banking, and these core banking and all, most of the parts have been taken care in the LFAR reporting, whether you call it about in terms of cash management, you call it in terms of money in I call it short notice, or all those clauses what they've mentioned, advances, everything. Those have been taken care. So that should be fair enough if you thoroughly follow this thing. Yeah, maybe internet banking, mobile banking and all, those are to be specific questions. As you said, no, as I was mentioning about posing to the particular bank, maybe you can take up latest inspection report performed on the branch to see any specific comments they were made on the internet banking or a mobile banking kind of thing. Usually of course that speaks about the more grievances only, if in case they cover pending grievances of mobile banking, internet banking, or any ATM kind of thing. And other operations, obviously they are also forming part of your financing services, where import export, the SWIFT system, and the respective support systems, and all these are all again this scope of it comes only in case of the specialized branches, not in the regular banking. Regular banking, obviously either it be CBS, or some banks you might have the payment system if the bank is attached to that particular facility. Card operations, this card operations has been covered in detail in your digital security payment recently issued guidelines by the RBI in the last year. Not just PCI DSS, they have a couple of more things to be considered. This again, it's a special area, periodic vulnerability assessment. Card operations, again, one more you can pose a general question is, if a branch has done any due diligence of merchants to whom they have issued those EDC machine, where they swipe the cards, like you have Paytm EDC, like HDFC EDC, and now SBI EDC machine. If in case bank has that facility of performing a due diligence or KYC of any merchant, where based on the report submitted by the branch, they have issued the EDC machine, that also to be taken care, because that's more important. Because nowadays, if you see, that is directly hitting on your AML, anti-money laundering, because I pay 2% to a local merchant who is having a machine, and I'll get the cash from him. As if I purchase some 10,000 from him, so I pay a 200 or 300 commission to him. He'll be, because it's hardly 48 hours within which the settlement happens from the bank and the merchant in the recent whatever recent developments have happened in terms of settlement. payment settlement system. So likewise, you can also pose a question to the branch asking about whether they have done those kind of KYC verification and all, where any EDC machines have been issued based on the report submitted by the branch. And swift process, as I said, this is again specialized this thing, not regular branches will have this. And post the recent fraud what we come across 2 years back or 3 years back, they have made it stringent. And this is also in a phase of conversion. You have this ISO standard which is coming up, which is already taken big care by RBI. It is in process for the last 6 years or so, and by 2025 that should be through, which is globalized. That's the common system followed throughout the globe. And yeah, review of technical configuration. This is again purely your IT audit scope, which of course will not deal with in our branch report, but in interest, as I said, based on the report what we come across, maybe IS audit report, if any adverse comments are there, then probably you might also consider that to be reviewed. What is the reason behind that comment, and what do you have to consider that particular comment in your branch audit? And what is the methodology? Again, this is again scope of IS audit. As I said, if you can go through the IS audit manual released by our ICAI, that should be fair enough. In fact, RBI has also mentioned the IS audit guidelines released by our ICAI in their master circular. So it becomes fair enough for us to just go through that particular guidance to understand the methodology of this thing. And audit execution, yeah. Audit execution is one, and trying to analyze the review results is one, and reporting those findings along with the follow-up is again altogether a separate aspect. As I said, this is more of pure IS audit, but what we are trying to cover this is just to give a fair idea about what kind of reviews you might come across. So this is a little technical in terms of what kind of application, because more or less when we go for any IS audit, majority of the scope will be covering through application audit, because that's where the data flows through, the data control, so-called data controls and all will happen. So application is, application audit is the core of compared to any other network audit or other things. This plays an important role. Now, what are the transaction layers? We all know what kind of layers have. They just try to run through a couple of, like if I speak about the transaction layer, there is the basic layer where the business happen, banking business happen. You have a branch banking, internet banking, mobile banking. You have chatbots and interactive voice banking as well, based on your, you just interact with your chatbot, say, I want to generate a statement kind of thing, or based on a voice chat also, it generates and mails it across. So these are all purely transaction level. You have banks like ICAI and all, they have also gone for social media banking. I believe SBI also gone for the social media banking. Through using Facebook and all, you can do your couple of banking operations. And call center, specialized call center, which will also issue checks based on your instruction, voice instructions kind of thing. And business POS and doorstep banking. These are the few layers what you have at the basic level, the transaction level. Now, the next level, that is the second layer, what you have is the service layer. That's where the front office or any customer relation management, in fact, high net worth individual, like you have wealth management kind of thing. So these are the purely service layers where they interact with the CBS or the channel. Of course, not the middleware. It's not purely a middleware, but it's more or less like a front end of a banking. Then you have middle office layer, that is the LOS system, what I was mentioning about, when it is a credit appraisal or loan processing or fraud risk management. The CIBIL and all will be generated at this point of time at the middle office layer, or dedupe check. There is a particular concept called dedupe check, saying that if a customer has taken any facility by using any other ID, by interchanging his name, first name being last name into first name, or combine various, it runs through that. It's like fuzzy lookup kind of thing. Dedupe check is, it will run through that and identify if the customer has availed any kind of loan apart from the CIBIL. Like they'll also do this in the regular activity. And of course, outsourced service is also very much important, because this has nowadays picked up, because a couple of services they are running through cloud. A couple of services in terms of if any report generation has to happen. Of course, banks have their own report servers, but a couple of banks, like we have a couple of cooperative banks also have gone into this cloud kind of segment. Okay, so these are all the middle office layers. And the core banking is where your entire banking activity happens. These are all as the transactions in terms of transfer money or exchange of currencies or whatever it is. But this is where your entire what you call you have retail advances, corporate loans, funding, fund-based, non-fund-based, the cash management, credit, debit card management, treasury management, portfolio management. These are all the core banking layers, and this might be running through CBS commonly, that is integrated, or they might have separate modules for each. And that's the problem what we face nowadays, saying that no, I mean treasury management and portfolio management does not link up with the CBS. It is not integrated with the CBS. They have to migrate the data. They have to export the data from here, import into these modules, or otherwise do some modification of the data, do the data entry, whatever it is. So these are the layers which are at the core banking. And report layers, this is mainly meant for the management or the decision makers, where they have these MIS and the regulatory compliance report, what is to be reported to the RBI, what is the frequency, whether it has been reported or not, what is the delay, what is the exception, and of course the regular customer personalized report. Like if I have to generate a particular 3-year report from a bank, I want to have a 3-year report I might be using. So these are all run through report layers. Okay, purely report based. This is once you run the EOD, that is end of the day operations, all those reports will go into your report layers. Otherwise, whatever we generate will be through the channel layers or the core banking layers. Then we have support layers. This is again the recent development where the backup management or the business process management, the document management, including the incident response and disaster recovery management. All these, of course, your regular audit service. When I say audit, it's not that financial audit or those kind of services, which are in terms of doing a third-party vendor audit or outsourcing client audit or data audit or systems audit, all those things. These are the supporting layers which support the other layers, and these support layers will randomly walk through any of these layers to identify what is the business process adopted and what kind of controls they have. They have in there. And the middleware layers, this is a recent development. Of course, India is still new to that, but of late, because this is where if I have to have a dashboard, a customized dashboard where my Finacle or my application, what I'm using, the CBS, what I'm using, is not possible to customize, because if I try to customize, it's not just a couple of areas. I need to run through various patches. I need to run through various modules of that. So it becomes so difficult for a bank to modify those. So rather than that, what they do is they'll have a tie-up with any vendor like IBM or Oracle, any of those products, where the middleware connects with your respective CBS and the transaction layers. And from the data, based on the data, they generate whatever reports, what they could be dashboard or could be any kind of analytic reports what you request for. And this is, as I said, this is a new development which has happened maybe in the last 4 or 5 years or so. So these are the middlewares. Again, it is very important to have what kind of agreement the bank has, because they have equally access to all these layers, just like your insider, any banking employee. I mean, those are authorized in the bank as well. Ultimately, you have these payment layers, all your RTGS, IMP, SWIFT, or check clearing houses, all those ATM switches, all these things, your Visa, MasterCard, okay, including your SMS gateways, all these forms part of your payment layers. So these are the 8 layers what a application in terms of banking application has. Okay. Now we'll take a small case scenario in terms of ITGC. Also, we'll try to have one more case scenario in terms of the regular CBS as well. Now, I was mentioning about what exactly is ITGC. This is, as I said, this is the mother of all. It speaks about what kind of the main framework at the IT level RBI suggested. Like RBI suggested 5 different kind of in the IT framework. They are defined 5 different levels, including your IT asset management and all. So it speaks about that. And couple of, like, say, just to give an example, you have access management. That is the way you have user access provisioning, revocation, any modification. These are all purely access management. And a change management. This is one important area what you can focus on in information systems audit, or even your regular branch audit also, because we have come across instances where a branch manager was transferred, and before he takes charge in the other bank, still his ID will be live. I mean, he would have transferred officially and he has to join in some other branch, and the ID is still not revoked. There is a change request process not initiated by the system, nor by any manual this thing. That is the crucial area, because that particular point itself, if you see collisions, whatever we come across in the recent Union Bank, when it was Andhra Bank, in fact, 2 years back, in a certain a part of Hyderabad, where there was a collision of 30 minutes between the branch and the customer. So all these things, because there is no proper controls of this. As I said, one issue is the integration aspect with your HR module and CBS, or otherwise I might consider what kind of mechanism a branch is following once a ID is revoked or once a employee is transferred. So these are the things what you have to consider in change management. IT asset management, as I said, purely. And this one question you can make is branch audit, whether the branch maintains any IT asset register. How many systems are there? How many printers are there? How many network devices are there? Whether they are allowed to bring their own devices, like so all these things. I mean, you can put this general question, whether if they don't have an IT register, then what control they have? I mean, is the system used by a clerk or some person in the bank? Is it really authorized to be part of your IT asset? Who knows? I mean, if a local vendor, with the help of a local vendor, they connect a system, okay, they patch up with the network, and you don't know, is it not? So always, just like the way you do regular company audit, and will pose a question saying that whether the branch maintains any IT asset, or otherwise any tagging has happened. Of course, geotagging and all still new, which still in the process of this thing. I believe RBI also might come up very soon in terms of trying to geotag the assets, IT assets of banking and all. But as of now, probably I might at least look for the basic IT asset register of the bank, what kind of assets a bank holds, and accordingly identify which asset is allocated to whom. I mean, the branch manager is allocated a particular laptop or a system. What kind of segregation of those profiles are done to with regard to that IT asset holding and all. Okay. Now, performance and capacity management, again, of course, this is again in terms of the advances. I mean, usually what branch does is, if I have a process where I take the help of the nearest branch in transferring certain activities, or due to various reasons, maybe because of improper capacity, or probably I might be using the services of some other staff temporarily who is allocated. Like usually we come across in the audit season, a staff will be lying, he is not having an ID, but he'll be helping us. So on interaction, we get to know that for accommodating audit, he's taken help from the recent local other branches, kind of thing, which obviously it has some impact on the capacity, where there is no proper capacity planning happen. Capacity not only in terms of HR, also the systems. You might also come across system issues where they don't have proper printers, they don't have proper network and all. So all these things form part of your performance and capacity management. And these are all other things which are your infrastructure management. Again, these are all at the central level, the policies what they draft. If required, probably you can pose a question saying that whether the systems they have any antivirus, whether how frequently they update, who is the vendor for those, does he maintain any register of visit, or do you have any service SLA, that is service level agreement with those, all those things. Those are the regular questions what you can pose in your even regular branch audit also, because obviously those are all hitting upon the controls, access management controls, also the physical and environmental controls. I've taken another case scenario of banking operations. Earlier was the ITGC, and this is the banking operations, that is the pure or core transactions what we speak about. The general banking, again, the regular data input and output monitoring. What kind of, this again speaks about your regular ID access management, the change management, what kind of, who will be doing the patch updation, the branch manager, which ID, using which ID a patch, like say if I have an interest patch shared by the zonal office or the central office, who has the authorization to update that, whether any what kind of levels they follow in a hierarchy, whether the branch manager is allowed, or any credit manager is allowed to make that updation. And obviously maker checker control is what least we expect, because obviously that's where we are finding so many issues, because there is no proper maker checker control. Just to take an example, just to share my personal opinion. Like if I'm issuing a check, I'm depositing a check, and it has gone to the respecting clearing clerk. Usually, you know that he enters and validates my signature and all. He generates a transaction ID. Transaction ID will be sitting in the hierarchy. I mean, in the list of approvals with the next level of hierarchy, and he opens that and verifies the process and approves it. Now, when we have this system in the transaction control, why not we have that in the documentation? I mean, why not have the same system of maker checker control? A person walks in, gives an application, I punch in the application detail. Usually what happens once we create a appraisal, everything goes through your Excel tracking or some Word tracking or any kind of those. Once everything is done, once a sanction letter is also generated through your MS Word document, once everything is done, then the account ID creation and all, that's where it enters the CBS. But by the time it has hit the CBS, already the customer is there in your system by sharing his KYCs, by sharing his application. There is a review, you have allocated a staff, you have allocated a capacity. Now, why not that thing have a maker checker control? Let's say if a customer is walking with a file, I take up the file, why not I create an ID through the system itself so that he keeps a track of who is maker and who is authorizing those to reach up to the stage of sanction, and from there it is hitting up on the CBS. Now those things we don't have, is it not? That is the major lapse what we have in a maker checker control when it comes to advances. It's very surprising, because if you speak about the same thing in private banks like ICAI, HDFC, right from the time you apply, it immediately allocates an ID, and that will be linked up to your regular CBS, and so the entire tracking of profile, tracking of transaction, tracking of documentation happened. But unfortunately, we don't have that. We generate an ID, but it's not a system generated. I create my own some kind of a manual kind of numbering. Okay, ultimately till the time it's the system, still it's a manual process, and obviously we can't expect a maker checker control at that stage. It has to be automated. Okay, so that's what the general banking, and again credit or lending businesses, this is all purely about the limit and the DP management, the collateral security. Okay, I mean here also a pathetic stage where if you generate a report of CCOD, any system, you would definitely see blanks in the primary security or a collateral security. Why not? Because maybe not updated, or for some reason, or you probably, once you question, it could be anything. I mean, it could be some manual error as well. I mean, so maybe intentional or may not be intentional, but I'm saying that is also not having a system generated process like the way SIRC has. Why not have it at the banking level also? I mean, why not? If I have to create a CCOD account, it has to automatically check whether these particular fields have been created, then only, and it is matching or meeting up the credit appraisal process, then only it has to generate. Otherwise, it should not allow. And still, we are in a stage where everything is happening at the manual level till it hits the CBS. Treasury management, real-time exchange races, whether it is how it is updated, cash flows and all. This again, as I said, a specialized branch. Exim and all, these are all specialized branch. HR management, this also you mentioned about whether all the staff has been assigned a biometric, because if you generate a MIS report, you will see a hash value, an ID, in fact, generated for the biometric authentication, could be thumb impression or retina scan or whatever it is. So that MIS will speak about what kind of IDs, what are the staff, employee ID, and what is the user ID, and whether these things have been authenticated through authentication process of biometric and all. And asset management, this is again, this is geotagging and all, still a new, but you'll have the life cycle management, like when it has to be probably when the asset is considered to be redundant and when it has to be scrapped, what is the movement of that, how they are going to hold, what is the physical, and what kind of register updation they have. So these are all the regular case scenario. I'm just suggesting these things at the basic level. You might even, if you purely get into that mode of IS and IT audit, you will get to see more and more. At the lowest level, just to have a fair idea about what controls what we are speaking in terms of banking operation. That is one. And this is the latest update what we had in this. Of course, this is meant to be implemented by 18th August 2021. I believe it has been extended later. So it is applicable to all banks. Okay, digital payment security guidelines. So what role as a branch auditor will be playing is, if you go through the controls what they have listed, like say if you say leaving apart the highest level, like say robust internal control system, conducting risk assessment, maybe at the central statute audit level, central audit level, I might consider these important things, whether the what kind of document it is in place while they have approved these digital payment services, and whether that is in line with the RBI guidelines for what they have issued. Of course, RBI has issued various guidelines. I'll be showing those payment security requirement and all that. Okay, these are at the highest level, at the policy level. Going further, and like this is what application. This is again still a technical area, which 19 to 32 para of master direction of issued on this particular has covered that. So security objectives, of course, this is purely of application development life cycle, and multi-factor authentication for payments, and maximum number of failed login authentication attempts. This is again still a policy level, but as I was saying, a customer grievances or any report, exceptional report where there is unwanted, probably undefined transaction happened to the customer account or whatever. If you go through the customer grievances, you can probably identify whether this thing is properly defined or not. I mean, usually if I try to log in for 3 times, it will fail, and they have to raise a request through online. Like if you speak about SBI has three different systems. In fact, one, either you can reset using your profile password. Second, you can request through courier, where they'll generate and share it to your address. Third, you generate a request letter right in the online, where you give define your grievance, and that authentication letter has to be signed by you and given to the branch manager. Now, when you go to the branch audit, you might question any such request of failed login authentication attempts have been received from the customer. Okay, as a sample, you can just try to verify, saying that at least if there is such control, or otherwise as a sample check what we are trying to do in terms of verifying this authentication framework. Fraud risk management, not just the regular fraud risk in terms of the digital payments, is specifically it has mentioned in these paras. Identify reason of fraud occurrence, educating, training staff, and this is one gray area. Like we used to have earlier days where they train staff on every day one Hindi word kind of thing. Okay, and it's not so religious when it comes to this cyber security. At least train a daily word on some IT control or cyber security, or at least whether they have periodically some training conducted to the staff, or whether the branch has initiated any such awareness campaign to the customer. We see those advertisements coming from RBI or the bank at the highest level, but how far the branch is engaging them, because you can't expect a MFC or village customer trying to understand these, because obviously he might be using mobile banking, using any UPI. Okay, nowadays you see many, in fact, even village, couple of places I come across vegetable vendors asking for UPI transfer, or so. Obviously, when you have that kind of thing, how good your customer is aware of, whether the branch is taking any such initiations in creating awareness, not only in the staff and also at the customer level. Okay, that part is again covered in the customer protection awareness grievance redressal mechanism from para 42 to 50. These are the things, and this is purely issued in terms of the digital payments directions. And they have suggested various controls, like if it is a DDoS attack, or if it is a phishing attack, or if there is a threat, what kind of control bank has to adopt. So I have not mentioned that technically. You can just go through the direction. It has given certain, it shared certain controls what a bank can adopt given those scenarios of various threats. Okay, around 8 threats is what example they have referred to. And mobile banking, what kind of policies are there? Again, around 20 various control mechanisms what this policy has defined mobile banking. This is one area which is very, very threatening nowadays, considering lack of awareness. It's not that hackers are clever enough to hack or whatever. It's just a lack of, not to mention, last year, I don't know, a couple of people have received this WhatsApp share, and in fact, a chartered accountant of Hyderabad has lost 2 lakh through what you call OLX. Okay, and he's a known person. So something like that. I mean, if obviously at the MFC level or a village level or the remote places, these security control mechanisms, as I said, its policy is there, a procedure has been drafted, Now, what branch has taken steps to create that awareness, or whether the staff is aware of those things more than anything. Okay, at the bank level, what kind of controls were? Whether the branch has been allocated any controls by the head office saying that no, with regard to these transactions or these activities, branch has the control to probably probably prevent that kind of thing. If any such a communication from the head office, you might request those communications saying that what kind of those branch responsibility is there when it comes to digital payment security. If so, what branch has taken up, what is the procedure branch has followed to ensure that those policies are in place. And as a sample, probably you can ask for a couple of case studies if in case you have come across any such. Card payment system, I was mentioning about various standards. We have a PCI payment card industry. This is a standard globally accepted, globally followed payment application data. And this is a PIN transaction, that is personal identification number, POS related, hardware related. That is when I say hardware, it's not only the EDC machines, it could be ATM or it could be any kind of hardware used for the payment. There are also standards what they have mentioned in that. And yeah, now a couple of the reason behind again identifying a few points is probably once we run through this, we can have Q&A. So I've just tried to bring back those important points out of the frameworks what they've mentioned. Okay, shall ensure the audit trail exists for IT assets satisfying its business requirement. There is an audit trail which is required for the banks to maintain, serving as a forensic evidence when required, assisting in dispute resolution. Now, if an employee, for instance, attempts to access an authorized section, this improper activity should be recorded in the audit trail. Now, have you requested, first of all, to provide the audit trail at the branch? If not, what is the memo you have raised, or what kind of communication you have tried to make to have that audit trail? Now, if you are provided with, how you are going to review that, whether you know that what is a failed attempt, what is which part, what is an exception out of the regular audit report, audit trails and all. Just like your regular Windows trails and all, if it is any fail, it will clearly say unsuccessful or successful, or okay or not okay. I mean, there's the regular terms of what any audit trail is configured with. So you can just, having a general glance at that particular trail, you can easily make out whether it was a successful attempt or not. Okay, or connectivity error kind of thing would be also. But as I was saying, regularly it will be like successful or unsuccessful kind of terminologies. So check if you are if we can discuss this with the branch manager, saying that no, because your IS policy requires this, do you have an audit trail? Have you ever tried to generate an audit trail? If not, have you tried to would you try to make a request with the EDP saying that no, we are looking for this audit trail to satisfy ourselves in terms of the data integrity, or to see that if any forensic evidence is required by a dispute raised by the customer, what kind of supporting you have. Okay, if he says that okay, it's generated at the central level and all, that's fine. At least you understand the process what a branch is following. And in terms of cyber security, the inventory management, this is one important, very crucial, which you can make it as your general questionnaire also in bank. What kind of update they do for the inventory of assets, not just regular assets, the IT assets, the devices, what they use in this, and which IDs, what are the IDs linked up to that particular IT asset and all that. Okay, now with this, I'm posing this question to you all. When I say about the control weaknesses in banks, do you find it a risk for your bank branch audit or central audit, or for that matter any kind of audit? Or do you see there is an opportunity for us as a chartered accountants where we can do value addition in not only reviewing, probably provide those kind of services wherever is required, could be in terms of drafting the ITGCs or drafting the controls, because when we speak about these controls, unfortunately the persons who handle these controls are domain experts of the technology. But as an auditor, I know the importance of the data, where the system, the data has to be captured, from where the system capturing has to start, what are the points of compromise or points of weak points in a transaction or for that matter anywhere. So being a domain expert, obviously we considering the experiences what you have in number of years, obviously your expertise with a little idea about the controls, you might find a better opportunities in these particular areas. So that how do you project yourself saying that you are aware of this is by using the branch audit report what you are going to perform. Of course, the other classes of LFR, and also not only that, any major observations you make in terms of IFC, where you are saying that no, technically these are the controls which is impacting my financial controls. So that point, by making those expression, by giving those expression, you are making regulators aware that you are capable or you have that this thing to take up this role as well, and also you're protecting your regular. The reason why regulators are questioning whether the bank audits are to be continued or not. So you're having your answer also saying that why they have to continue this through your control report or control review report or other things. And self, before you are gauging the risk of looking for opportunities, what are the questions you have to pose yourself? Whether what are the areas you cover as part of bank audit? Is it only about regulatory requirement or financials, or you're going up to controls? Is this really a new concept to us? And have you ever questioned to the bank managers the way you have questioned the PSU or large companies to ensure the regulatory compliance? Because most of the time we carry this mind of LFAR, MOC, all those three documents, the three primary documents. Now, if you come beyond that, if you take it as a general, because your audit report speaks much beyond those three reports, is it not the main report? So if you come out of that mindset and try to pose the more regulatory or control relevant questions, that's where you have more value addition to your audit report. And fourth question, obviously, when you are gauging this opportunity, you are trying to link up with your return on investment. Because if I say, you might say that, okay, I'm paid for this kind of capacity, I'm paid for this kind of dedication, I mean, time what I spent on a branch audit, why I should be going beyond scope. Why the comparison will be probably in terms of the timelines what I have, or probably I might be comparing, may not be all I'm saying, but generally I might be comparing with the cost, what is allocated towards that. Okay, but if you think in the grounds, you might losing an opportunity to learn much more, many more things, because if you come out of that phase, I would say you would see 100 different opportunities existing lying in the banks. As a team, if you come forward expressing yourself by taking this opportunity what you have, you might get the hats on to those opportunities as well. This is what I thought of adding. And from my side, as I said, it's more of theoretical. I know I'm not sure how many of you are awake or with me at this point of time. So if you push
throughout the session, 6:30. We are close to 6:30 plus throughout the session, sir.
Oh, is it great? Thanks for that.
You can see the question.
So any questions? Kindly.
Sir, did you see the questions box, or do you want me to compile and put it? So there are some questions. You could have seen it.
Yeah, I could see. One second. Let me
just scroll down and see the latest part. Maybe there may be more questions.
Yeah, sure. Okay, initially live, whether live audio button or echo. Please check.
Log it should be there.
Oh, there was a request. Can you just show past 2 slides? I'm not sure. This was at 49.
Other than after that 5 o'clock.
Yeah, there is a question from Krishnan and KN. Sir, there are PC-based and mobile-based versions of application which enable users to be logged in from 2 devices at the same time. What kind of security issues should we address for such cases? Appreciate your input. See, whether that is a control lapse, because if I'm viewing through my mobile and also at the system at the same time, if you find it as an exceptional, I mean, if you have come across that particular report where you're after generating, you're seeing that is a point of issue where you might be reporting. Okay, but we can't say completely saying that there's a control lapse, because that has been enabled for a reason, wherein multi of course they might put a control saying that if it is beyond the 3 devices or 4 devices kind of thing, those controls. So probably you'll review from logging from multi devices, what kind of control they have. Is there any maximum limit? Like if you speak about hotspot and all, you have a limit where you can set only 1-2 devices can be connected kind of thing. Well, the same way, whether the bank has any policy of that, you see, basically you go with the policy. You will not take any decision saying that whether it is proper or not. You just purely go with the policy. If the policy says it should not be allowed logging from multiple devices, then that definitely that's the point of concern. But if the policy allows, obviously, it's just an exception what you're identifying. Maybe you might want to investigate further, you can take it up. Kindly down 10 key areas which a BSA should look into, and relevant records maintained at branch or generated. Branch personnel always say figures are generated, unable to explain. They pose little knowledge on process flow and control. Yeah, definitely they have very little knowledge. As I was saying, that's what concern of RBI also in terms of awareness, what the banks have. And relevant records, I'm unable to understand the question. Branch person always say figures are generated, unable to explain. Okay, I'm understanding that you identified certain information in the report, certain amounts which they are unable to explain. Okay, so obviously you might be raising an audit note, and if they are unable to explain, that goes into your audit evidence. I mean, you might give your opinion based on that whether it is a material. If it is material, probably you might take that into consideration in reporting. Otherwise, basically you will be raising those as part of your audit note. I mean, if it is very specific in terms of suspense accounts like exceptional report and all, definitely you can't take that. You can't buy that point saying that they are unable to explain. That's a point of concern, and obviously you'll be reporting that. If it is part of those exceptional reports or suspense account kind of thing, you can't say that they are not in a position to explain. Okay. Can you please share the material? Yeah, I'll try to share it with SIRC. I think they can circulate. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We will share it along with the recordings.
There's a last question. Can you please elaborate the importance of DR business continuity for a system perspective and the control surrounding? See, this is, as I said again, this is purely a policy, DR disaster recovery and business continuity plan. Every bank obviously have to have that. But what is the importance of concern is not the bank, the vendors or the outsourcing entities are those who are dealing with the bank data. Do they have those? That's the point of concern what we should be, and that is that can be identified only through the agreements or the MOUs what bank has entered, like as I said, right to audit kind of thing, or otherwise that's one important area what we have to cover. But the vendors, whoever is providing services to the bank, do they have those disaster recovery and business? Because I might say that I've shared that in certain information with the vendor, it's lying with the vendor, and the vendor doesn't have a proper BCP. I might be losing customer information there. Okay, so bank wise, definitely they'll have, as the RBI clearly mentioned, that a server has to be located in the Indian geographical area and all that kind of things what they have mentioned when it comes to cloud or otherwise physical server also. But when it comes to vendors, that point has to be probably looked in through the agreements what they have, and if they have, probably you can request 1 or 2 policies what vendor has to review. Usually we do this as part of our systems audit, where we request for BCP of the vendors as well. But otherwise, generally you can request if it is covered in the agreement with the vendors. So I think
yeah. All the questions are taken, ma'am. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, unmute. Ma'am, you are not audible, sorry. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So thank you very much, CA Vijay, for your absolutely brilliant presentation on information technology circulars in bank audit. Actually, you have simplified everything so well for us, how to do it at the branch audit level as well as a central statutory auditor, especially, the breaking down of the various controls. How do you actually verify the general controls, which I think is very applicable at the branch audit level, because there is a lot of resistance when you go to the branch and ask them to, actually ask them questions pertaining to information technology, which they will say immediately it is taken care of at the back end, at the regional level, at the central office level. Please don't bother about it. You ask them for the IT security manual, they look like you've come from Mars. What is wrong with you? Is this even a part of your scope? So, this is a problem which all of us face when we go for bank audit. So, you have broken it down into very simple. Yes, sir.
I'll add one point here at this point of time. Like someone responds, probably I'm just sharing my idea. If someone responds saying that they are not aware of everything, you might say, okay, this attracts the clause of cybersecurity or the digital payment, where RBI has mandated staff to have this. So can I consider this as a qualification point saying that branch is not aware of these things? So if you just probably pose this question to him, so probably you might open up.
Very true. That is a very brilliant suggestion, sir. I think all of us should implement this, because I think, after having done this course, we can very easily take up even the DISA or CISA examination. You've actually broken it down in such a simple manner for us. But it is something which all of us should actually implement as a part of our audit. Given that there's so much of importance which is being given and reliance by the various stakeholders, even on the bank audit, it is not this 2-day, 3-day affair like earlier. We definitely have to spend a lot of time, and I'm sure that all of us have to spend at least a minimum of 1 day doing an IT security audit at the branch level. Every branch we do have to do it, because there are a lot of control lapses there, and which we as the branch auditors are definitely responsible for. And as per your brilliant suggestion, if you say we are going to qualify the report, I'm sure that their responses are going to be so much more, to the point and helping us to arrive at our conclusions. Thank you so much, sir, for your spending so much of time and breaking down these IT circulars for us. Thanks a lot. I hope, I'm sure all of us have gained. I, on my own side, have gained a lot. I'm sure everybody else has also gained a lot. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Revati ma'am, and thank you, SIRC, for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. So, Selva, we will discontinue.
Yes, ma'am. I'll end it.
Yeah. Thank you.